Oh boy, is this going to be a tough comparison. Today we've got two pretty great low-profile mechanical keyboards to look at, the Lofree Flow and the NuPhy Air75. So which one is the best? Before we dive in, I want to mention Lofree sent me the Lofree Flow for free for the purpose of making a separate review video, which I did. The Air75 was not sent to me by NuPhy. I bought this one myself quite a while ago. This video is not sponsored, and none of the manufacturers asked me to make this video. All right, this should be pretty interesting because I really like both of these keyboards, but for different reasons. As I mentioned, I did do a full separate review video on the Lofree Flow, so if you really want the full breakdown of everything on the Lofree Flow, definitely check that out. I'll link to it in the corner and in the description. Let's get started with just a basic comparison of the hardware and features of these two keyboards. Both the Lofree Flow and the NuPhy Air75 are 75% keyboards with an ANSI layout and 84 keys. Neither one is currently available in an ISO layout. Construction of the Flow is all aluminum and it weighs 568 grams. The Air75 has an aluminum top frame and an ABS bottom and comes in at 523 grams. The Air75 features a 2500 mAh battery expected to get about 48 hours of use with the backlighting on. The Lofree Flow has a 2000 mAh battery and is expected to get about 40 hours of use between charges. The Flow offers 3 Bluetooth connections and USB-C wired, while the Air75 offers the same but adds a 2.4 GHz connection as well, so you can connect up to 4 devices wirelessly. Keycaps are both die-sub PBT and both offer a choice of switches including linear and tactile. Both feature hot-swappable PCBs, however, the Air75 has a total of 6 different switch options when you factor in the NuPhy switches that can be purchased separately. Meanwhile, the Flow has 3 switch options made by Kale. The switches in the Flow use a different pin arrangement than Gateron low-profile switches, so unfortunately, they're not interchangeable. Backlighting for the Flow is white only with 4 brightness levels, and there are also side lights with RGB color options and 3 modes. Lighting on the Air75 includes full RGB with 21 modes for the individual keys and 4 modes for the corner indicator lights. Neither keyboard comes with shine-through keycaps unless you count the semi-transparent look of the white keycaps on the Flow. Both are compatible with Mac and Windows and allow you to switch between key layouts. The Air75 has a dedicated switch next to the power switch, while a key command changes the layout on the Flow. The Air75 has a retail price of $109.95 US, and the Lofree Flow is currently available on Indiegogo for $129 US. However, it will be available later in 2023 directly through Lofree's website. I will update the links in the description of this video when that happens. All right, so now let's focus in on some pros and cons. Now, when I'm reviewing an individual product, I just go pros and cons, whatever they are. In this case, I'm gonna try and focus a little bit more on pros and cons that maybe are offset by the other one. In other words, if something is good about one thing, maybe it's not so good about the other. I also should mention some of the pros and cons that I'm gonna mention may not matter to everybody. You may not care about some of the things I don't like, or you may care a lot more about some of the things that don't matter as much to me. That's totally normal. But let's start with the Air75. A major pro, in my opinion, for the Air75 is the flexibility with switches. Now, the Flow is hot swappable, but you're limited to only using the Kale switches that actually fit the pin positions. So you can certainly switch between the linear and the tactile, and there's also a clicky option available in the Kale palm switches for the Flow. And NuPhy's Air series has 6 different low-profile switches available. There are 3 that are NuPhy collaboration switches with Gateron, and then there are 3 traditional Gateron low-profile switches. The good news on the Lofree Flow is that these switches are really nice, so you may never want to switch them. Now, here's a pro for both of them. It's just different. They both come with nice feeling keycaps and a great typing feel and experience, but they're different. And I can't say that one is better than the other, so I can't really say that it's a pro for one and not the other. They're just different. Here's a sound sample of both. So it really depends on what you like, because if you like kind of that louder, a little bit clackier sound that you get out of the Air75, it's gonna be there no matter which switch option you choose. In my experience, the most subdued sounding switch is actually the Wisteria Tactile from NuPhy. If you don't like that louder sound, you like a more muted, subdued sound, I think the Flow might be what you prefer. Another pro in favor of the Air75 for me is the RGB and the lighting in general. I think the Lofree Flow for me kind of falls down in the department of lighting. The backlighting, if you get the lighter color option with the white keycaps, the individual LEDs of the backlighting are visible through the keycaps, which I don't love. I think it's a little distracting. The side lighting, you actually can't match the white color, the same color temperature as the backlighting. All right, 3 more pros in favor of the Air75. You've got a 2.4 gigahertz connection here. NuPhy gives you that with all of their keyboards, and it also gives you a 4th connection because you still have 3 Bluetooth connections here on the Air75, but you get a 4th with that 2.4 gigahertz. There's no 2.4 gigahertz with the Lofree Flow. Also, the feet. The feet on the Lofree Flow are technically detachable, but not really. You have to take these screws out, and then if you do take them out, well, the keyboard won't be stable. So these are basically permanent feet, only one typing position. The Air75 has these removable feet, which this is a pro and a con for me. The con being that because they come off easily, they're just magnets. If you travel with this keyboard, you could lose these, and I lose stuff all the time. So I don't love that they're detachable. I wish they were just the kind that fold down. But anyway, you can remove these to get 2 different typing positions instead of just 1 on the Lofree Flow. And you also, because these come off and the feet that remain here, these really thin rubber grippy feet, you can actually place the Air75 on top of a laptop, and these little thin rubber strips will go right between a row of keys. So you can actually use this sitting on top of your laptop keyboard if you want to, whereas you cannot do that with the Lofree Flow because these are too wide and they will always be pressing on keys. All right, the last thing that for me is both a pro and a con for the Air75 is NuPhy console. Now, in I think every other video I've made that had a NuPhy keyboard in it, the NuPhy console is just a con because it's not available on Mac, it's only available on Windows currently, but it's also just been a clunky experience. They haven't really gotten it to a level where it's on, the same level as using VIA software or something like that. But I'm listing it as both a pro and a con because at least with NuPhy keyboards, you have some access to the firmware to do remapping, add macros, have different layers. You can do those things with NuPhy console as long as you have a Windows computer. At least there's something. With the Lofree Flow, there is nothing. There's no proprietary software, there's no VIA, no QMK. All right, now some pros that are kind of more in favor of the Lofree Flow. As I mentioned when I talked about the typing feel and experience, if I had to pick one to type on, and it was going to be in public or in a space with other people, I would pick the Lofree Flow. It's still very enjoyable to type on, but it's also a little bit more subdued and muted, probably less likely to get other people annoyed at me. Don't get me wrong, it still makes, it still makes sound. It's not like nobody's gonna notice, but it's a little less intrusive of a sound than the Air75, even with some of the quieter switches. Now, of course, if you're using this at home, then it's really just down to preference. Which one do you like the sound and feel of better? You can't go wrong with either one. Another pro is that I really do like the construction and the aesthetic of the Lofree Flow. I like that they went for a more minimalist look. You still have a little bit of sort of branding here on the right side with a different colored metal and Lofree's name there, but otherwise, pretty minimal look with both the white and the black color options. Not to say that that's a con for the Air75, it's just that maybe there's a slight edge here in favor of the Lofree Flow. When it comes to battery life, I thought I was gonna be disappointed by the Lofree Flow because they only expect it to last about 40 hours in between charges, and it has a 2000 milliamp hour battery. But the fact is, I think that 40 hours, maybe that was based on having some of the backlighting on or something, because when I'm not using the backlighting and using it intermittently, I easily went 4+ days. I think I got a 5th day in at one point where I didn't even think about charging it, and it definitely was not an issue. I definitely have been able to go about 2 weeks of intermittent use with the Air75. There seems to be less of a discrepancy than I expected at first in terms of battery life between these two, especially when the lights are off. So which one would I choose? That is a super tough question. Honestly, I like the color and the aesthetic of the Lofree Flow, how it pairs well with my MacBook. This is really subjective, but I might like NuPhy's keycaps a little bit better. Something about the larger legends I think I prefer, but again, super subjective. And that's what's making this really difficult for me to say like which one is the better choice, because they're equally matched on a few things. I think the Air75 is better at more things, but the things that the Lofree Flow is good at, it's really good at. And when it comes to price, I think they're both fairly priced. I don't think you're overpaying for either one. The Lofree Flow, at the time that I'm recording this, is still available for $129 US. It will eventually be available through Lofree's website directly. I don't know what the price is going to be at that point, so that may change my opinion. So ultimately, if you were trying to choose between these two, I think it's gonna come down to what I've been mentioning all along. If one of these checks the boxes that you care about the most and the other one doesn't, I think that'll probably be your answer. So I hope you found this comparison helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think of both of these keyboards. Let me know if you have either one of them and how you're liking it. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you wanna see more videos like this. Thanks everybody, see you next time.